Good morning. Today I am giving information about the third semester subject, that is fabric structure, in that third unit about the looms. Today's session is second session. Earlier session you are learnt about the looms, definition of a loom, types of a looms, that is hand loom and the power loom, differences between the hand loom and the power loom. Now you have to understand parts of the loom. What are the parts of the loom? First one is harness, heddle, shuttle, reed, warp beam, cloth beam. These are the parts of the loom. See, here the warp yarn are fixed to the warp beam. They are lengthwise yarns. Reed, this one is the reed. This is a woven cloth, that is the filling yarn, that is through the shuttle we are inserting the weft yarns. It is a cloth beam. This is the warp beam. These are the shafts or the heddles. This one is the shuttle, reed, harnesses. These are the parts of the loom. Then you have to understand what is a harness. This is a frame consisting of variety of wires of heddles. So harness is a frame. It is a frame. It contains the variety of wires of heddles. So every heddle consists of an eye fixed through that one or additional warp yarns passes. So it is a head. This is the harness. Here the wires. These are the wires, and these wires consist of the eye fixed through the one or the additional warp yarns must passes. This is the harness. So what is a harness? Harness is a part of a loom which is a frame consists of series of wires known as the heddles, to which the heddles consist of the an eye through which the additional warp yarns passes. In addition, the harness is that the necessary part of a loom because it has upward or downward movement of warp yarn, ensures the right running of the filling yarn over or below the warp yarn to supply the designed pattern within the textile. So it is necessary because it helps for the raising and lowering, that is the downward and the upward movement of the warp yarns. So knowing the interlacement order, how many yarns have to be upward and which yarns have to be downward, through this process is carried out by the using the harnesses. This is a harness, contains a wires wire. Next is the heddle. It is a wear with a hole within the center through the warp yarn goes, where there are several heddles as there are warp yarns within the textile. So it is a heddle through which the warp yarns passes. This is a eye. This is a wire. In the center it has an eye through which the warp yarns passes. And all the heddles need to control in two or additional harnesses. The warp is raised and the down by the harnesses heddle arrangement. Once the harness is raised, shed is created through that the filling yarn are often inserted. So after raising and lowering of the warp yarns, shed is created. Through that shed, the filling yarn is inserted. So this is the function of the harness: raising and lowering of the warp yarns, forming the shed through which the weft yarn is inserted. Next part is the shuttle. What is a shuttle then? It is basically a weft carrier and helps in interlacement of the weft with the warp threads to form cloth. So shuttle is the main part, that is it contains the weft yarns, that is it is a shuttle. Here the weft yarn is wounded, releases the wound, that is the releases the weft yarn. So the shuttle, which is made of wood, passes from one end of the loom to other. It travels along the wooden sleeve raised and passes between the top and bottom layers of the warp sheet. So after raising the and lowering the warp yarns, that is the shedding with the help of the harnesses, then through the shuttle we are inserting the weft yarns through the shed, so it undergoes many abrasions to the warp yarns. The shuttle enters the shuttle box fitted at the either ends of the loom after passing through the warp shed. The shuttle normally weighs about 0.45 kgs. Shuttle holds the filling or the filling yarn and passes backwards and forwards across the loom. So the movement of the shuttle will be from back to front, that is inserting the weft yarns. Next part is the reed. What is a reed then? It is a metallic frame, that is the comb that is fixed to the sleigh with the reed cap. So reed is the metallic comb. It is also a frame like structure which resembles the comb. The reed is made of number of wires and the gap between wire is known as the dents. This is the reed. It is a frame. It resembles the comb which is used for the herring. That it contains the series of wires. The gap between the series of with one wire to another wire is known as the dents. It is the frame. Reed is the frame that is found directly before the harnesses. Furthermore, this frame pushes forward whenever the shuttle passes in between the warp yarns and presses back in the filling thread in position. That is, after the insertion of the weft yarns with the warp yarns, with the help of the shuttle, after the insertion of the weft with the warp yarns, the reed, with the help of the reed, you have to push up the inserted weft yarns towards the cloth beam to form the fabric. This is the process. The reed performs the number of functions which are enumerated as follows. First one, it pushes the lastly laid pick of weft to the cloth fell. Second, it helps to maintain the position of the warp threads. Third, it acts as a guide to shuttle which passes from one end of the loom to the other. Last, it determines the openness or closeness of the fabric. So these are the functions which is carried out by the reed. So first, it pushes the last inserted weft yarns towards the cloth. It helps to maintain the position of the warp threads. It guides the shuttle which passes from the one end to the other loom. It determines the openness or the closeness of the, that is the compactness of the fabric, that is insertion method. Next is the warp beam. This is also known as the weaver's beam. It is fixed at the back of the loom. The warp beam is fixed to the back of the loom. The warp yarns are wounded onto this loom beam. The length of warp in the beam may be more than 1000 meters. So warp beam, this is known as the weaver's beam main part. It is fixed at the back of the loom. Warp yarns are wounded on this beam. The length of the warp in the beam may more than 1000 meters. So fixed, they are fixed. Next is the cloth beam. It is also known as the cloth roller. Cloth beam. The woven cloth is wounded on this roller. This roller is placed below the front rest. So it is fixed to the front rest. So you are clear about the what are the parts of the loom, that is harness, heddle, reed, shuttle, cloth beam and the warp beam. These are the parts of the loom. You understood the parts and the functions of the loom. You have to answer the assessment questions. First one is to mention the parts of the loom. You have to mention the parts. Describe harness with the neat sketch. You have to give description about the harnesses with a sketch. Explain the shuttle. What is the shuttle and the function of the shuttle? Describe the warp beam and the cloth beam. You have to explain about the warp beam and the cloth beam and the functions of the warp beam and the cloth beam. Explain reed with a neat sketch. What is a reed and what is the purpose of the reed? You have to write. Describe the parts of the loom with neat sketch. So you have to describe all the parts. Which are the parts of the loom? You understood? That is of harness, heddle, reed, shuttle, war beam, cloth beam. These are the parts you have to describe along with the sketches. If any doubt, you can ask. Thank you.